Chewie? Chewie, is that you? Chewie! Wait, I can't see, pal. What's going on? Luke's crazy. He can't even take care of himself, much less rescue anybody. A Jedi Knight? I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur. All right, pal. All right.
Hi folks, this is Ron, and you're listening to Star Wars, Delusions of Granular, the podcast where we pick a Star Wars topic every week and get granular with it. Without me this week is my co-host JP, who is off having a baby. So we wish him well, and we hope that he will be able to take a break from diaper changing duties soon and be able to join us. But until then, just going to jump into it this week. There's a lot going on in the Star Wars universe, a lot of things going on around the Star Wars universe. I kind of felt like I needed to talk about some of these things. One of the things that I've been seeing, if you're on Facebook or any social media, you've probably seen a lot of this. Amy Schumer, comedian, she has a new movie out called Trainwreck, a Judd Apatow movie, and she's doing a little bit of promotion for it. So she's on the cover of GQ, or going to be on the cover of an upcoming issue of GQ, I should say. And I don't know, she took it upon herself to do a very creative cover shoot for this particular article. Folks, if you've seen this on the internet, if you follow anything Star Wars related on the internet, I'm sure you've probably seen this. She's dressed like Princess Leia as a slave, which, you know, a lot of cosplayers, some models, actresses have donned the Princess Leia slave outfit. But Amy Schumer takes it a little further. She takes it one or should say two steps further, because there's actually a picture of her in bed with R2-D2 and C-3PO in a setting that looks like she's just post-coitus with the two lovable droids. There's also some inside photos, or I assume are going to be inside photos, of her in the slave outfit again. She's doing some naughty things with a lightsaber and her mouth. It looks like she's also with Chewbacca, not in a sexual position, but I don't know. It looks like she's dancing on a bar table, or a bar at a cantina, and Chewbacca is there. Looks like they're Ubering or in a cab. Honestly, I think some of the photos, they lose their shock value once you get past those cover images of her. You know, I should say the first image that appears looks like it's going to be the actual cover. It looks like she's sucking on one of C-3PO's fingers. So, as you can imagine, Lucasfilm's reaction to this was not approving. I guess somebody tweeted out to them, or they tweeted out on Twitter, that they do not approve or condone of this inappropriate behavior or portrayal of our characters in this manner. So, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, I guess they are not, shall I say, in bed with Amy Schumer and her choice of promotions for her movie. Mark Hamill, on the other hand, did tweet out and said that he's actually excited and when he first saw it, he thought maybe that Amy Schumer was going to be cast in Episode 8, and he said that they should be so lucky to have her. So, good sport that Mark Hamill is. He's taking it well. Lucasfilm and Disney, not so much. Now, as far as I know, there has been no legal action taken place for any kind of cease and desist or pulling of this magazine off the shelves. Apparently, it's August issue, so it probably hasn't even hit the shelves. I think we just got a sneak preview of it all over the internet. And when I say all over the internet, in the circles that I'm following on the internet, I see it everywhere. I've been bombarded with these images. So if you're like me and you're following Star Wars, I'm sure you've seen these as well. But that brings us to what I wanted to talk about this week, because obviously this is something that his only Star Wars can really do. Is people are taking Star Wars, which has become such an iconic thing over the years, and using that to their own benefit, their own promotions, shall we speak. I did go see the Amy Schumer movie. There is no mention of Star Wars in it. There's no connection to the Star Wars universe, obviously. So her portrayal of Princess Leia is really just a marketing attempt to, or I should say allegedly a marketing attempt to get noticed on the all over the place, and on magazines, on the internet, to boost her, basically her, presence everywhere. Not that she needed it. I think that they were doing a really good job of marketing her movie anyway, but this really just puts it over the top. And I think what I wanted to talk about this week is this is not something new. There's been, I will go through other attempts by other people throughout the years that have kind of used Star Wars, the brand, to their own advantage. I think it's an interesting topic. I work in advertising, and what this is really called is borrowed interest. You're taking the interest of something else and borrowing it for your own purposes. So you're borrowing Star Wars to promote something that is unrelated to Star Wars, but borrowing it to promote yourself. And that's truly what Amy Schumer is doing here. I'm not judging her. It's it's a tactic. It's a marketing tactic. I'm not making any kind of judgments here. It's a funny thing. Lucasfilm isn't really taking it as a joke. I don't think any legal action is taking place, like I said. But that being said, by coincidence, the same week that this is going on and Amy Schumer is all over the place as Leia in a slave costume, I get an email. I'm a music fan. I get an email in my inbox saying that the rock band Wilco has a new album out. I'm like, wow, that's surprising. A lot of these bands nowadays, they just kind of drop albums without any kind of build-up. You don't hear anything in the news, and then all of a sudden there's a new album. And that's exactly what Wilco did. They dropped a new album literally overnight. They sent an email. I guess I subscribed to their mailing list at some point, so I got an email. Their new album titled Star Wars. That's right. They are using the, I guess we could call it the brand, to title their new album. Now, if anybody is not aware of who Wilco is, they're kind of a country rock band, alternative. They can get a little avant-garde, I would say. But they're based here in Chicago, where Delusions of Granular is based. Good Midwestern folk. They, up until this point, I've listened to most of their albums. They've never really had any kind of Star Wars mentions in their songs. They've never really gone into any kind of sci-fi thing. And next thing you know, they're releasing an album. It's called Star Wars. Call that what you will. The cover of the album is by no means sci-fi related. In fact, it's a picture of a cat, a white cat, with Star Wars written on top of it. It's just an illustration. It's not an actual cat. Very stylized, cursive writing on top of the cat. So some would say maybe this is also a marketing ploy. Maybe it's just their idea of a joke. I don't know. I did read somewhere that it was their, somebody was speculating that this is their attempt to get Google higher rankings, because everybody who goes on Google either searches for the term Star Wars or they search for pictures of cats, and they're covering their bases there. I don't know. I just think it's a funny coincidence that the year that we're getting a new Star Wars movie, that all the hype and build-up is coming for a new Star Wars movie, that Wilco drops an album called Star Wars. So, as far as I know, Lucasfilm, either they're unaware or they just don't care, or there's just not enough connection to Star Wars other than the name for them to give a shit. I don't know. Maybe if the lead singer, Jeff Tweedy, was actually wearing a Princess Leia slave costume, maybe that would garner a little bit more attention from Lucasfilm and Disney, but that's not the case. That being said, I started to dig up a little, some more incidents where in the past Star Wars was kind of used in this way for people's own self-promotion. The one that came to mind immediately was from a couple of years ago, the Pharrell Williams song Happy. I'm sure, folks, you've heard this song a million times. It's one of those songs that just got stuck in everyone's head, and everywhere you went, it was playing for a whole summer. I caught wind of the song when I saw the video for it, or at least a video for it. I was drawn to the video. I don't know how I came across it, but it's, again, Star Wars themed. It's basically you have a bunch of cosplayers dressed up in very accurate costumes from Star Wars. C-3PO, Stormtroopers, Boba Fett, Tusken Raiders, all kind of dancing around to the Happy song. The interesting thing is, apparently it was shot in Tunisia, and they actually went to the original sets for either Star Wars or Phantom Menace, or wherever the sets still exist, the huts, the homesteads that appeared in the movie. These people are dancing around to the Pharrell Williams song, and they are on the actual sets. So it's a cool video. If you have a chance to check it out, just Google Pharrell Williams Happy Star Wars video. You'll find it. Now, I was a little bit taken aback by this. I was like, well, how come Amy Schumer is getting a lot of heat for this, but Pharrell Williams is not? Is it because it's not as raunchy? It's still using Star Wars for his own purposes. It's not like he's doing anything Star Wars related. He's never appeared in a movie. He's promoting himself with this. Well, I found out that there was a huge thing where basically it became kind of a viral thing on the internet, where people kind of recorded themselves in different cities across the world in videos for the Pharrell song. So you had, I went to the website, and it's like wearehappy.com or something, and it's just a list of cities where you can click on and watch videos from any city across the world where people filmed a Happy video. Turns out that the Star Wars one for Happy is called We Are Tatooine, and it was filmed near the actual city of, well, I don't know how you pronounce it other than Tatooine, but Tatooine is actually based off of a real city that has a name similar to Tatooine. Apparently George Lucas saw that name and is like, hey, that would make a great name for one of my planets, and he just kind of switched some letters around, and there you have Tatooine. So I looked into this, and I was like, oh, well, apparently Mr. Williams he didn't actually make this video. He had his own video for Happy, and this is just other people taking his song and doing what they will with it. So I can see where there's no real legal action there, because it's just kind of people having fun with a catchy tune and Star Wars characters. Nothing wrong there. So, okay, I'll scratch that off the list of people that Lucasfilm needs to take legal action against. So, going deeper into this, I think this was from like maybe last year, there's a brewing company called Empire Brewing, and they are based out of New York, and this is back in 2014, so it was last year. They decided they were going to release one of their beers, a lager actually, called Empire, based on their name, Empire Strikes Bock, B-O-C-K. Well, apparently Lucasfilm was not happy with this at all, and they immediately took legal action to try to get the brewery to put a kibosh to this very similarly named to Star Wars beer. Apparently, they said that it's a little bit too close to Star Wars in name, and that there may be some people might be confused that this was actually a Star Wars or Disney endorsed beer, and it is not. So this is, definitely Lucasfilm taking legal action here. I find it interesting that they're kind of going after the little company here. Empire Brewing they're not a big company, but they're going after this little company, taking legal action, scaring them. I'm not entirely sure what the actual outcome of this was, but I would guess that Disney's lawyers, Lucasfilm lawyers, probably won out, and the company probably was not able to release this beer. Folks, if you've seen this beer on the shelves, if you're in New York where this might have hit, let me know, because I'm curious. I'd love to see a picture of this beer. Let me know how it tastes too, because does it taste like a sweaty Darth Vader? I don't know. So as I delved deeper, and I was talking to JP about this, he's like, well, you missed the big one. I'm like, well, okay, who? He's like, Kevin Smith. I mean, he basically, Kevin Smith's movie, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like, that's got Star Wars written all over it. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this? Like, we actually did an episode about Kevin Smith's connections to Star Wars. He's kind of built his entire career on this, borrowing the interest of Star Wars to use for his own movies. Well, can we fault the guy? I mean, he's done it in a way where he's written it into his characters. His characters are much like all of us fans, so why wouldn't they talk about Star Wars? But JP did, he brought up Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as a particular incident where Kevin Smith, borrowed the interest of Star Wars for his own benefit. But honestly, Kevin Smith's entire career was built off of this. Like, from Clerks on, he was always using Star Wars for his own good. As far as I know, I think George was probably more of a fan of it than taking legal action against Kevin. So apparently Kevin made out well. He didn't get any lawsuits against him for using lightsabers in his movies that were actually bongs. Like, you would think it's I guess the point I'm trying to make, folks, as I'm stumbling over this, is it seems like there's a line that you can cross with Disney and Lucasfilm where Yes, you can poke fun of it or have it be a parody, but there's a certain point, like Amy Schumer, where she gets a little raunchy with it. Apparently, you can't have R2-D2 and C-3PO in bed with you because that's where they draw the line, and say it's a no-no. So it's an interesting because it seems like this line moves. Drug references, Mark Hamill playing a character who wields a lightsaber type object who's named Cockknocker. And Carrie Fisher is also in that movie too, as I believe a nun who, well, she gets raunchy too, but apparently that's as far enough removed because she's a nun and she's not actually dressed like Princess Leia. I don't know. I think it's a little bit interesting where the line of demarcation is as far as what Lucasfilm feels is inappropriate and what they don't feel is inappropriate. Now, this goes back to the early days, as far back as 1979 when Star Wars was still young. I believe A New Hope was the only movie really out. This was before Empire Strikes Back was even released. And going back to music, Neil Young, a big favorite of mine, he did a tour. He had a very famous album called Rust Never Sleeps, and he did a concert or a tour around that album and he released it on DVD. I think he even released an album called Live Rust. Now the DVD is really where it takes a hit because this probably is where it got noticed the most. On stage at that time, Neil Young had characters, actually his roadies, dressed up like Jawas. Now, he didn't refer to them as Jawas. He referred to them as road eyes, instead of roadies, I guess, road eyes. But they were short in stature. They were wearing brown robes. They had glowing eyes. And they're on stage doing weird things with Neil Young while he's playing his music. This was really kind of the start of it all, because at the time, Lucasfilm didn't really have a lot of legalities in place to protect themselves against this kind of thing. So this was really the start of it. They're like, hey, look, we got to get the lawyers involved here. Neil Young can't be doing this. This seems wrong and inappropriate. He's using our characters in ways that we did not intend them to be used, and it's not something we want to do. So, and I'm citing as a source here the book called Star Wars: How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, and in that, because I was not able to find it anywhere, but in that book, the author actually states that Lucasfilm did sue Neil Young because of this. Now, I don't know if that's true. I tried to dig up, does this lawsuit actually exist? Was it just a cease and desist order? I don't know. But back early as 1979, maybe 1978, that's when Star Wars and Lucasfilm was taking legal action against using characters in inappropriate ways or in ways they did not intend for characters to be used. Poor Neil Young. This obviously ruined his career. He didn't go on to do anything beyond 1979. He never seen from again, right? Nah, I'm kidding. He still goes on today. He's still making crazy ass albums and he is not he's not fading away quietly. Let's say that. So I wanted to keep digging. I was just like, man, this is such an interesting thing. Like where people are using Star Wars for their own benefit. You don't see this happening with other properties. It's maybe Star Trek, but it doesn't seem like it's as diverse of we have comedians, we have rock stars, we have brewing companies, all trying to cash in on the Star Wars name without having anything to do with Star Wars. But there's not a lot else, right? I would think maybe, I would guess Star Trek is the most close to that, but not being a Star Trek fan, like nothing really comes to mind is like what are people borrowing Star Trek for their own interests? I don't know. I don't see it. I am missing. I did leave out the best for last. This was in the 80s, and folks, if you were around in the 80s, I was still a kid, so correct me if I'm wrong on some of this stuff. I'm not going to get into details on this, since this is an area that I'm not as proficient in, so I don't feel like I can speak as eloquently about it. But back in the 80s, our president at the time, Ronald Reagan, he had a program, and he called it Star Wars, and this was basically a satellite program to shoot nuclear warheads at Russia, and so it involved space or satellites floating around the globe, rockets shooting in air, and Ronald Reagan's like, yes, this is called Star Wars. And I remember as a kid this being kind of a big thing. You were hearing, oh my God, the president is talking about Star Wars, like he's talking about my favorite movie. But he's not talking about it in a way that I understand. He's talking about it as like an actual war, like not just space fantasy, but actually like shooting missiles at people. How inappropriate is that? Like, Star Wars is just a fun sci-fi adventure, and he's using this to promote his weapons of mass destruction. Well, obviously, Lucasfilm did not take legal action against the president. What are they going to do, right? But as far as I know, from what I've read about George Lucas, I'm sure he did not really endorse this. But what was he going to do? Apparently, maybe at that time, or I don't know, maybe it just can't trademark the two words, Star and Wars. I don't know. But I thought that was the biggest crime against the Star Wars movies as far as this episode goes. We have Amy Schumer, we started out with, who's, she's just dressing up to dress up, poke a little fun at herself at the movies. But, you have the President of the United States back then, like, using it for his own, warmongering. Like, how awful. So, that's what I wanted to talk about this week. It seems like there's been a history of this. Maybe there'll be more. Maybe there'll be more lawsuits in the future. I don't know. If I missed anything, if there's some other borrowed interest incident that I missed that you'd like to talk about, please feel free to contact me. As always, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/SWDOG. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at SWDog77. You can call our hotline at 651-33-SWDOG. That's 651-337-9364. Or email us at swdog77@gmail.com. And you can always subscribe to our show at Stitcher or iTunes. Or you can download any of our past episodes at delusionsofgranular.com. That's GRANULAR.com. So, folks, that's our episode for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if I missed any incidents that are similar to what I talked about tonight, please go ahead and contact me. And I look forward to all of your emails and phone calls. And until then, I will talk to you soon. Stay granular.